Hey gang, strap on your diving gear because this month we are going in deep, and I mean deep, on alibis. We're going to talk about the 4 kinds of alibis that exist in mystery novels and how you can design a mystery that allows your sleuth to break each and every one of them. In this video, we're talking about what may be the most classic version of the alibi, the kind of alibi you probably think of when you hear the word alibi, and that's an occupied alibi. In an occupied alibi, the villain's whereabouts seem to be accounted for at the time of the murder. You've seen this sort of alibi in a dozen mystery novels at least, and it looks a little something like this. In an episode of Monk called Mr. Monk and the Critic, our sleuth, Monk, attends a theater performance for his assistant's daughter, Julie. Julie's mom is pretty nervous because John Hannigan, a ruthless theater critic, is there to watch the show. While the play goes on, Hannigan's girlfriend is murdered at a nearby hotel just in time to keep her from spoiling his upcoming nuptials by revealing their affair. Hannigan certainly looks guilty, but he was visible during the entire performance, so how could he have done it? Well, it turns out Hannigan had a little help. He told the men's washroom attendant that he needed a smoke break and couldn't be seen leaving because it would hurt his reputation as a critic. The attendant agreed to switch places with him for a crucial 10-minute window, and that was all the time Hannigan needed to commit his terrible crime. This is what I like to call a decoy murder, and it's one of the simplest possible ways for a villain to set up an occupied alibi, and for you, as the writer, to break it. Very frequently, the decoy is a person, but sometimes it's something else. In an episode of Columbo called Double Exposure, the villain invites a group of advertising executives in to screen a new commercial and says that the audio hasn't been recorded yet and he'll be reading the script from the stage. Then he sets a recording going to mimic his voice and sneaks out to kill his victim. If the decoy is a person, they are most often an unwitting accomplice. That is, like this gentleman, they have no idea that their actions have made them complicit in murder. Usually, they figure it out somewhere along the way, which rarely ends well for them. But using a decoy is not the only way to construct an occupied alibi. Let's take a look at my very favorite way with an episode of Monk called Mr. Monk Visits a Farm. Jimmy Belmont, a farmer who is growing acres of marijuana on his property, murders his neighbor, who has found out about his secret and is threatening to expose him. To do so, he arranges the perfect alibi. He attends the town square dance, and at a crucial moment, the lights flicker. That's when he knows to make his move.
Hey, hold on! Quiet down! That sounded like a gunshot.
Nobody else hears this gunshot, but the town sheriff goes to investigate and finds Belmont's neighbor in his truck, plowed into a line of electrical fencing and dead of a gunshot wound that appears self-inflicted. His prize pig is also on the scene, dead in the road. To everyone, the timeline looks clear. The farmer accidentally ran over his pig, then collided with the electrical fencing, causing the power outage at the square dance. Overcome with grief, he decided to put an end to everything. There's no murder to investigate, and even if the sheriff thought there was one, well, Belmont would certainly be in the clear. More than 50 people can testify to the fact that he was occupied at the time of death. Or was he? In fact, the death occurred hours earlier, before Belmont ever arrived at the dance. He met his neighbor on the road, attacked him, and placed him unconscious in his car. Then he shot him, making it look as though the farmer might have done it himself. Then it was time to get to work. He propped the truck up on several salt licks from his barn, then put it in drive. At 8 o'clock, when the automatic sprinkler system went off, the salt licks began to melt, and the truck was able to move forward into the electric fence, causing the power short that all the witnesses observed. This is what I like to call a time-shifted murder, and it's a plot where the villain makes it appear as though the death took place during his alibi, when in fact it took place either earlier or later. Time-shifted murders are one of my very favorite kinds of plots, and to make them work, you generally need a false attack, a moment when everyone believes the victim is being killed. In this plot, the false attack is the collision of the truck with the electric fencing, which indicates to everyone that the death took place during the alibi. If you feel like this video is giving you value, please take just a second to smash the like button, and if you did, thank you so much. I am all about helping writers to create fantastic mysteries, and those likes really help me move the channel forward. So in our first two examples, we have essentially violated the two different halves of the Occupied Alibi. The Occupied Alibi reads like so. The villain's whereabouts were accounted for at the time of death. In the first solution, the decoy murder, we revealed that the villain's whereabouts were not what they appeared to be. And in the second, the time-shifted murder, we revealed that the time of death was not what it appeared to be. Is there any way to break an occupied alibi without violating our reader's understanding of either the villain's whereabouts or the time of death? Actually, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that plot from Mr. Monk Visits a Farm. Notice that it would work just as well if Belmont had incapacitated his neighbor, left him in the truck mounted on salt blocks, and counted on the electrical fence to finish him off. This would have required a few more steps to his plan. He probably would have had to overclock that electrical fence quite a bit. But the essential structure of this plot works just fine, and it is what I call a time delay murder. In a time delay murder, your villain puts the victim into a situation that is sure to lead to his death, then goes out to establish his occupied alibi. I must admit that thinking about the time delay murder has my gears turning. What would happen if the villain woke up sometime before the murder was completed? In that case, we'd have something that would go disastrously, deliciously wrong for our villain, and it would be a blast to plot out how he'd try to recover. Figuring out what goes wrong for your villain is often the key. It is the key to creating a twisting tale of confusion and intrigue, and if you'd like to see how that works, you might want to check out this video next. We examined how this principle plays out to stunning effect in a few real mysteries, including Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile.